Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Tuesday, June the 9th, 2020. I was going to talk about something completely different in this episode. I was going to talk about the elections that are being held today here in the United States, in a number of states, including Georgia. I was going to talk about the other states that have elections today and about the deadlines for registration to vote in some of the states that will have their primaries 2 weeks from today. I will continue with that this week. Today, however, is a day to mourn and a day to remember. Wherever you are in the world, this is the day to mourn, to celebrate, and to remember George Floyd. George Floyd was buried today in Texas. George Floyd is somebody who everyone in the world knew, if not personally. They knew him through the last moments of his life. They felt his pain. They experienced some of his pain. They understood, many of us understood, what it was like for a police officer to pull us over, what it was like for a police officer to brutalize us. And many of us are surviving family members of loved ones we've lost to police violence. All over the world, statues are being pulled down of racist people, of white men who owned black people as property. People that represented the Derek Chauvins of the world are being given executions. Their statues are being toppled. In their place should be put Rosa Parks, Ida B. Wells, Harriet Tubman, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan, Crispus Attucks, Frederick Douglass, Amelia Boynton, John Lewis, Angela Davis, Malcolm X. I could go on and on. When I return, George Floyd. Remembering George Floyd. Welcome back. George Floyd was me. George Floyd was you. George Floyd was many of us. He grew up in Houston, in the 3rd Ward neighborhood there. And he had graduated from Jack Yates High School, and he played several sports, football, basketball. He was a good athlete. And he was coached by a man named George Walker, and was recruited by George Walker to play in Florida at a college there, which is exactly what Floyd did for 2 years. In the 90s, he played at South Florida State College. George Floyd was a coachable basketball player and had done his job as well as could be expected. An athlete who thrived on the court as a youngster and always had a big heart. Someone who always cared. He looked out for people. He always made people smile. He made them laugh. He cared. He was someone who always looked for the better thing in life, always looked to improve himself, and always looked to improve the lives of others with the smallest of gestures and the smallest of things that he did, the words that he would speak, the comforting voice, the word of wisdom, the person with advice, the person who inspired. George Floyd cared about his community. He cared about the people in his community. He cared about family. He cared about friends. He was really a larger-than-life figure to hear some of those who knew him best say. Big Floyd, Perry, Floyd. These were just some of the names used to call him. Some of the names that those who knew him best would call him. George Floyd was someone who was listened to, the gentle giant, the voice of reason, the man who really did care. He always looked to be better. He always wanted to better those around him. He always influenced. He was one of the pillars of the family Floyd. He was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina in 1973. Then he moved to Houston, Texas. Then he would, after moving to Florida for college at South Florida State College, would eventually move on to Minnesota, He was a family man, and he wanted to better himself as a father as well. And so he moved to Minnesota to try to make more money, to better himself and to better his family, so he could help provide even more for them. So he moved to Minnesota and he drove trucks. Big trucks to provide for his family. The father of 2 daughters. He did the best he could. He was also the father of 1 son. George Floyd would also moonlight as a security guard at a nightclub in Minnesota. He was very popular there. He was the life of the place. He was admired by many. He was someone who illuminated a place when he walked into it. He had everybody's back. He was looked at as a pillar of the community as well as a pillar of family. He was a protector. He was a provider. His role as a security guard was welcomed when he was at the nightclub in Minnesota that he was the nightclub bouncer security person for. He was someone who protected. He was a champion of the rejected and the despised. He was a champion of the rejected and the despised. Big Floyd, the gentle giant. A father, a fiance, a son, a friend, a neighbor, a leader, a human being, a man. His name was George Floyd. His name was George Floyd. He had 46 years in this world. He stood up for people, Courtney Ross said. She is the fiancée of George Floyd. He was there for people, she said, when they were down. He loved people that were thrown away. We prayed over every meal. We prayed if we were having a hard time. We prayed if we were having a good time. Giovanni Thunstrom, who was the owner of Conga Latin Bistro, said of the man who worked security there for roughly 5 years that, quote, George Floyd was loved by all my employees and my customers. Giovanni Thunstrom was also George Floyd's friend, a friend of his. They were friends. Thunstrom also said that George Floyd, was, quote, a very nice guy and really good with customers. George Floyd was somebody who was loved and beloved. George Floyd was respected. George Floyd was someone who cared. He cared about life. He cared about love. He looked out for people. He loved his family. He loved his friends. He loved people. He loved life. George Floyd was buried today. A movement is growing in his name and the names of countless others. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Derek McAtee, and so many others. George Floyd is going home. Today is a day to look at the life of George Floyd, to cherish the life of George Floyd, to celebrate and remember the life of George Floyd. Today was the day he went home. Today is the day he said goodbye. Today is the day we said goodbye to him. George Floyd will never be forgotten. George Floyd will always be remembered. I look at George Floyd as a head of state in his community, a head of state for his family, a head of state for his friends, an ordinary man, an ordinary person who just wanted to get ahead in the world. He wanted to continue to live, to love, to breathe, to have joy, to have ups and downs, to have family, to have friends, and to take care of his family and educate his children and raise his children. George Floyd must be honored, and he must be honored all over the world. George Floyd, rest in power. We must have justice for George Floyd. We must completely overhaul this system of policing and the institutional racism on this earth. We must completely eradicate a system that oppresses black people all over the planet. A system that oppresses brown people all over the planet. It must be eradicated completely. If we care about a society and societies around the world, and we want them to be just, we have to make sure that the system across the board treats them as such. In healthcare, in housing, in jobs, in the economy, in education, all across the board in all of the areas of life. There must be equal justice under the law for everybody. George Floyd deserves that. You deserve it. I deserve it. We all deserve it. If one of us is not free, none of us are free. The following audio is from a day or two after the murder of George Floyd.
Everybody loved my brother. Knowing my brother is to love my brother. They could have tased him. They could have maced him. Instead, they put their knee in his neck and just sat on him and didn't care at all. He screamed, "Mama, mama, I can't breathe. I can't breathe." And they didn't care. So I just don't understand what more we got to go through in life, man. They didn't have to do that to him. He's a giant. He don't hurt anybody. He give his last to anybody. They didn't care. They treated him worse than they treat animals, and I wouldn't treat animals like that. They took a life, now they deserve life. I don't feel sorry for them. They hurt me and they hurt my family. I can't take nothing back. I can't get my brother back. They at home, they sleep, they with their wives, they got kids. If something like that happened to them, they'll be just like me. I just don't know what's going on now.
So firing them is a good start, but we want to see justice for our family. And we want to see them charged. We want to have them arrested. They need to be charged with, because what they did was murder. And almost the whole world has witnessed that because somebody was gracious enough to report it.
The connection, we lost it for a second. You said you want to see them charged. Did you say charged with murder? Is that what you said?
We want to see them charged with murder. And we want them to be convicted. We want them arrested. They need to pay for what they did. He didn't deserve what happened to him. And they didn't do anything to help him. They were supposed to be there to serve and to protect. And I didn't see a single one of them lift a finger to do anything to help. While he was begging for his life, not one of them tried to do anything to help him. That I didn't see. What I did see was murder. And that's what I want them to be arrested and charged and convicted for.